Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and these are your horoscopes for the month of April 2019. So this is the Sun and Rising sign horoscope for Aquarians. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So this month, I'm looking at things thematically rather than going through each individual transit. And the reason for that is that there's so many happening at once that I think it will be easier to just sort of summarize things thematically than drawing them all out with the software this time. So let's begin with the new moon on April 5th. Lands in Aries in your third house. That is the house of in the ancient world, the third house had to do with anything that would guide or inform your actions in a more immediate familial, community, neighborhood, everyday life kind of way. So obligations to siblings, to brethren or kin, to people that lived around you, short journeys to see people that you were connected to your home base somehow, the subway ride you take, or the taxi ride that you take, or if you live in New York City, or the trip to the grocery store, like just kind of that flow of everyday life and the things that guide and direct that flow. And it's also related, not surprisingly, to the mind. Because the mind is kind of similar in terms of the mind is like a little a network of daily patterns and habits that we follow. So a new moon in the third house in Mars's sign brings action and newness and some degree of martial energy, sometimes conflict or competition or just assertiveness into that sphere of your life right now. And we also see the ruler, Mars, in the fifth house, which is the house of good fortune and auspiciousness. So this might mean, for example, that you're having fun, partying a little bit, for example, or even like going to the gym a lot or something like that, or you're kind of enjoying things with neighbors or with children. This could also mean that there is good fortune this month coming because the fifth house was traditionally the house of good fortune and joy and creativity, that just good, creative, fortunate associations within your immediate environment are coming. However, there are some things to be aware of. For example, later in the month, on the 19th, you're going to see a full moon in Libra in the ninth house in Venus's sign. And eventually, Mars is going to move toward a opposition with Jupiter. And that could provide a little bit of conflict, stress, or tension between immediate environmental concerns, obligations, and comings and goings, and higher beliefs or truths that guide your life in a more kind of cosmic way or a higher sense. The ninth house has to do with things that guide our life in terms of, higher truths, like the legal system or your theological beliefs or the omens and oracles of astrology, the higher guidance system, right? So while, this down here, this new moon in Aries with Mars in the fifth house of good fortune, creativity, joy, happiness, looks fun, right? This is eventually, you're going to be moving into something of a philosophical conflict. Mars in Gemini, opposite Jupiter in Sagittarius, with a full moon in Libra in the ninth house. You're going to be weighing things that are happening in your everyday life. You're going to be weighing with higher philosophical, spiritual, even legal concerns that also play a really strong role. You can also see this happening in another area of your chart. So, by the way, that full moon is on April 19th, in case I didn't say it already. So you can see the potential for conflict this month also because this full moon in Libra in the ninth house on the 19th will square Saturn and Pluto in the 12th house. And the South Node and Saturn are getting together. This has the potential to, this full moon has the potential to be like a karmic reckoning if there's been anything that's been sort of reckless or self-indulgent or frivolous, anything that you've kind of recently gotten involved with, that has been a waste of your time or energy or money. There may be a higher kind of spiritual or philosophical or even legal moment of reckoning. Saturn and Pluto with the South Node in the 12th house they're about some of the deeper and heavier, more consequential encounters with those elements of our life that take us off our course, off our center. The 12th house was traditionally called the house of evil spirit, and it was related to things that might take us off path, that guide us away from a healthy level of control over our actions, our mind, our endeavors, etc. So this full moon in Libra in the 9th house of the higher truth, the higher cosmic law, the higher karmic law, is a balancing, a reckoning moment that's pretty heavy with Saturn and Pluto in the 12th. So this brings to mind, again, the question of whatever we're starting this month between house 3 and 5 for Aquarians looks pretty good in the immediate sense. Like it might look like the good thing to get involved with, or the good, might be pretty fun or creative or whatever. But if in any way it's not coming from the best place, so there's something frivolous or thoughtless or kind of mindless or ignorant involved with what we are endeavoring to do right now, there will be a bit more of a reckoning by the time of the full moon. And you can see this because another way of looking at it is, look, the new moon is in Aries in the 3rd and ruled by Mars in the 5th. Mars, in turn, at the start of the month, has just entered Gemini in your 5th house of good fortune and joy and happiness in Mercury's sign. And what do we see? We see Mercury getting involved in a conjunction with Neptune while it's in its most debilitated state, in its detriment and fall, in the house of money and finances. So I'm particularly concerned about Aquarians and money this month. Even though the month you're going to see Venus and Mercury get involved with conjunctions to Neptune this month. On the 2nd of the month, Mercury with Neptune. By the 10th of the month, Venus with Neptune. And then both will make squares to Jupiter in the 11th house of allies by the 12th and 15th. On paper, like that would appear to be a moment of greater blessing or benefit for money or finances, maybe perhaps related to friends and allies. However, I think the other possibility is because Mercury is debilitated and Neptune can sometimes bring out an idealistic quality and sometimes make us prone to wearing the rose-colored glasses, that toward the beginning of the month, Aquarians, you might be prone to doing things that look good or that feel good or that appear to be the right thing or that you might feel is heroic or necessary in some sense. You may feel some sense of loyalty to someone or something, or you may be taking a risk or doing something for the sake of fun or pleasure, and it may cost you something, or you may have to invest something, or there may be some degree of risk involved and some degree of idealistic thinking may be involved that later you have to come to terms with. So that's kind of a summary of the warning that I'm giving Aquarians this month. On the other hand, I think that another way of looking at it is, as an Aquarian, what are you investing your time, money, energy, and resources in right now? Who are your real friends and who are your real allies? And how do the choices that you're making in your everyday to prioritize your time, money, energy, and resources with friends and those people in your immediate environment, how do those things stack up against higher truth, against your beliefs, against the need for a higher sense of calling or purpose in life? And being really honest, if you're an Aquarian, you have to be really honest with yourself this month about the higher principles that should be guiding things, because they're going to need to come in and participate for this month to go well. Between the 20th and 23rd, finally, the sun will enter your 4th house in Taurus and conjoin with Uranus, a bit of a shakeup or surprise in the area of home, family, and domestic kind of matters, maybe a little bit of a unexpected event or announcement or something that's very illuminating and inspiring, but some event of change, kind of sudden with Uranus involved. That should be interesting right around between the 20th and 23rd, right after the full moon. So you can also expect a little bit of a shakeup around home and family just after the full moon. And this may also play a role in making you look at those higher beliefs and how they are informing and guiding your actions versus a more immediate set of concerns that may look or feel good or really beneficial, but may not be as substantive as you think that they are. So anyway, that's the gist of what I'm looking at this month. I think you also have to be a little bit careful that a more principled and strict and intense energy doesn't overwhelm you in your mind this month, with the sun in the third house in Aries, very martial, a house related to the mind, getting into a square with Saturn and Pluto in the 12th house. Potential for some self-destructiveness by being too stubborn, too principled, too strict, too impulsive, etc. And but then at the same time, between the 10th and 15th, the potential for really grandiose, loosey-goosey thinking at the same time is there. So if you've ever seen, like, for example, one thing I would use to characterize this 10th to the 15th zone this month, if you've ever seen like a 3 to 4 year old have a completely delusional idea about something that's really bad for them, and then if you try to tell them otherwise, they start acting like, like a Hitler. They become a dictator. They become so fierce and like, I will kill you if you try to stop me from doing this horrible thing I want to do. Be very careful, basically, about that, about some kind of really naive form of thinking leading you to a very principled place of acting, especially in the first half of the month, but maybe particularly between like the 10th and 15th. All right, that's what I've got for you, Aquarians. I hope this was interesting. Please leave me your comments. Tell me your stories. It helps me to get better at what I do. I appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next month for May's horoscope. Take care.